Tom Clark's 6M podcast is a Boink Studios production. And now, on with the show. Hey, what is up? Welcome to Tom Clark's 6M podcast. I'm your host, Tom Clark, and in this episode I'm joined by co-host Phil Lindsey. From the world of professional wrestling comes one of the most popular promotions of all time, a company that takes an old school approach to the business, creating an environment where honor is at the core and giving fans the in-ring storytelling they love to see. We're talking about Ring of Honor. Ring of Honor is a pro wrestling promotion based out of Baltimore, Maryland. It was founded by Rob Feinstein in Philadelphia in 2002. ROH began as the result of RF Video's desire to continue distributing pro wrestling DVD VHS releases after ECW's closure in 2001. RF Video was owned by Feinstein, who decided to open his own promotion to keep the video business going. Ring of Honor's first event was held on February 23, 2002. The promotion quickly grew in popularity among pro wrestling fans who were hungry for an alternative to WWE, which had won the Monday Night Wars. ROH became the default number 2 wrestling company in the United States as a result, and immediately gained recognition in the industry. ROH became a destination for many pro wrestlers, but also served as a stepping stone for many others. The company's emphasis on fundamental pro wrestling, combined with high-flying acrobatics, set it apart from every other promotion at that time. The company features some of the industry's biggest names, including CM Punk, AJ Styles, Daniel Bryan, Samoa Joe, Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, and Adam Cole, among others. Much of Ring of Honor's rise came under Kerry Silken, who owned the promotion from 2004 to 2011. Silken sold the company to Sinclair Broadcasting, and the company expanded even further during this time. ROH would later form business partnerships with other pro wrestling companies, including the NWA and New Japan Pro Wrestling. One of ROH's most popular eras came thanks to New Japan's Bullet Club, the wildly popular heel stable, which came to the company around 2015. The Bullet Club's primary faction, the Elite, featured Cody Rhodes, the Young Bucks, Kenny Omega, and Hangman Page, all of whom became major players in the industry. ROH worked with the Elite on the group's first ever All-In event in 2018, which saw over 11,000 fans in Chicago witness the birth of what would eventually become All Elite Wrestling. The Elite's departure from both Ring of Honor and New Japan impacted both companies. The two continued their collaboration at the G1 Supercard, a major event which took place on April 6 of 2019. But while the event was a sellout with over 16,500 fans in attendance, ROH's contributions to the show were heavily criticized by fans and pro wrestling insiders. ROH's next 2 years saw a decline in business for the company. While the promotion's future is uncertain, longtime fans are anxious to see a return to prominence for the company, which continues to operate nearly 20 years after it began. And that's the lowdown on Ring of Honor. Depending on when you decide to listen to this particular episode of the 6M podcast, Daniel Bryan may or may not have a new home. As you guys and gals well know, if you're pro wrestling fans anyway, he has spent the past several years with WWE. He's seen the highs, he's seen the lows, he's had his career end and thought it was over, and managed to come back from it. Depending on who you ask, he's a favorite, or people hate his guts because he cries too much. I've actually heard and debated people who genuinely believe that. There's some wacky people out there, kids. Spoiler alert. Be careful who you decide to debate with, because you may end up being disappointed. But Phil, before we started recording here, you mentioned the fact that Bryan's not the only free agent. And again, kids, as of this recording, he is a free agent technically. But also Samoa Joe is still out there. As of this recording, I should put that out there. But both these guys, former Ring of Honor stars. I mean, this is, and the topic today is Ring of Honor. We don't get Daniel Bryan in WWE if not for Ring of Honor, I believe. And I definitely don't believe we get Joe anywhere, including TNA, without Ring of Honor. Phil, in this day and age of some fans believe it's WWE versus AEW, other fans believe they're not even on the same page, in the same book even, depending on who you ask. But we're talking a lot about these two companies. And we talk a lot about New Japan, and we should. And all three companies definitely have something to offer. Impact Wrestling is making a comeback. We're definitely talking about them. I'll hit you with this one out the gate. Uh, Considering how important that this company is, they meaning Ring of Honor, and how many stars they've supplied to the bigger companies, why are we not talking about Ring of Honor in 2021, you think?
Well, I think there's two things that happened. They took off, and they took off with a lot of great ideas. They were kind of like they kind of filled the void that ECW left behind. And they ushered in this new era of indie wrestling that's kind of become, took off and blew up even more after them. And I think part of the reason we're not talking about them more is just how much WWE did to poach all of their biggest stars. Every time someone would get hot with them, WWE would come in and snatch them up. And then, they've had their own um, problems as well, in terms of just like, politics in their company. I've heard, weird things with media, the Skrull stuff, the Kelly Klein stuff. They've had a lot of controversy around Ring of Honor for like the last few years. That has kind of hurt their reputation a little bit. But I think more than that, the bigger, I don't want to, downplay the controversy, but I think the fact that none of their big stars ever really stay there, they end up going to a bigger company, is partially why we're not talking about them more.
There has been this sense over the years that Vince McMahon has sort of raided that locker room. Um,
For sure.
and if WCW had still been in business, you could probably make the argument they probably would have done the same thing too.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think Ring of Honor is still seen as an indie promotion by most people. So, Ring of Honor is not the big time for some people. It's a stepping stone to the big time.
Yeah, and coming from a guy who's involved in independent professional wrestling, a lot of what we do on this level is not the destination. I mean, if you're a weekend guy and you're just doing it because you love to wrestle, okay, maybe this is the destination. Maybe you're perfectly happy, and you know what? That's fine. But for a lot of guys who are young up and comers, the rising stars as we call them, what we're doing on this level is not where they want to be. That it's as you said, it's a stepping stone. It's a learning curve. It's a platform to get you somewhere else. I mean, I would think maybe some of that has to do with their production. And Ring of Honor's production has improved over the years. Don't get it twisted, kids. I mean, they look better than they did aesthetically now compared to 10, 12 years ago, especially. I mean, they do look better. But, could that be one of the things that sort of keeps them off the majority of pro wrestling fans' radars? That is just how they look, maybe.
Yeah, I think there's some of it. I think the production value kids kind of hurt them a little bit. Um, but then too, I just think that the market right now is more competitive than it's been over the last 2 years. I mean, you've got MLW making a real push. NWA is back and they're on Fight TV. Um, you've just got more to contend with, and they didn't have to deal with this big juggernaut in AEW before. They could legitimately say they were one of the top three promotions maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Now I would say that they're firmly out of the top three.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, I agree with you. I think they totally are. Crazy because to your point earlier about a lot of guys don't see this as the destination. Then you got guys like Jay Lethal and Jonathan Gresham who absolutely do the Briscoes, who absolutely do see Ring of Honor as this is it. I mean, dude, Jay and Mark, we've all heard the stories. If you're a wrestling fan, you know the stories about they had NXT tryout and Laurinaitis was according to Jay, sort of buttering them up, saying y'all about to get these contracts. I remember that promo he cut and making it sound great. But then they came back at the last second. Well, you don't really have the look. You're not aesthetically pleasing, cosmetically pleasing enough. And Jay's like, what? What do you mean? Like, do we shave? What are you talking about? Instead, And so ever since that happened, I mean, I'm not going to speak for Jay Briscoe. Who am I to do that? But it kind of feels like they're of the opinion, well, you know what? That's how it's going to be. We'll be happy where we are, and we'll give them the best tag team wrestling on the planet because we can. And dude, Jay and Mark are so freaking good. I mean, they barely talk to each other in the ring anymore because they don't have to. They know each other so well, and they are as smooth right now as I've ever seen them. And they are pillars of that company, dude. I mean, without Jay and Mark, and they've been there since day one.
Yeah.
That's saying something, man. That's huge for Ring of Honor.
Yeah. And I mean, when you say don't fit the aesthetic, don't fit the look, I feel like a good percentage of the biggest stars out of Ring of Honor fit into that same category of guys that don't fit the look of a top guy, but they end up proving everyone wrong. And we had several of those guys get signed by WWE, wouldn't touch him before until
Yeah.
Ring of Honor made them a star, and then they wanted them, and then they kind of still didn't get them. I mean, that's definitely the case with Samoa Joe. I got the feeling that when he came there and he was making appearances and he was killing it at that time on the Indies, they signed him because he was so hot. But then once they got him on the main roster, it was kind of like they didn't know what to do because he still didn't fit that aesthetic. I mean, you hear Punk talk about it. You hear Brian talk about it. Um, I get the feeling that could be something that hampers Cole at some point.
Remember on the CM Punk documentary that WWE did, where they were talking to Daniel Bryan, and Bryan's like, well, he's like, at the time I was happy for, he's talking about Punk coming over and stuff, but he's like, I was happy for him, but at the same time, it was, he's not what they want. They
Right.
meaning WWE. He's like, I'm happy for him, but he's not what they want. So he didn't know how it was going to end up for him. But you're right. It's like a lot of their guys, and Paul Heyman back in the day described the ECW locker room as the island of misfit toys. They were the wrestlers nobody else wanted. How much of that do you think applied? I don't know. Well, maybe the Ring of Honor locker room is guys that WWE doesn't want until they want them. You know
Um,
what I mean?
I would say that it absolutely fits because, again, I really feel like Ring of Honor in a lot of ways was the spiritual successor to ECW. It wasn't as hardcore focused, but it was so focused on work rate over, character and gimmick. And
Right.
I think a part of WWE wanting them is not so much like, oh man, this guy's the guy. It's kind of like, oh, this guy's killing it over there. Let's figure out how we can stifle that. And
Right.
I hate to say it that way, but I mean that's clearly what it is. Because when you look at some of the guys that they got from there, and they didn't push them nearly as heavily as Ring of Honor did, but they kind of wanted them because they saw that they were a star there, or that they saw that what they were doing there, and they tried to replicate it. Man, I don't want to turn this into a super, pro Ring of Honor anti WWE thing, but when you look at some of their biggest storylines with NXT, they're essentially covers of what Ring of Honor did. I mean,
Oh yeah.
Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn's rivalry with that company is totally Kevin Steen and El Generico. It's
Right.
it's just done in a different way. It's all based off of the continuity and equity they created with Ring of Honor. I mean, they're just now doing the Cole and Kyle O'Reilly stuff. That's all Ring of Honor.
Summer of Punk.
The Summer of Punk. They basically they did their coverage version of it. I mean, yeah, I mean there there's so many things. And again, to not make this a pile on WWE thing, but to point out just the fact that Ring of Honor was the precipice of a lot of things that we see now. I mean,
Yeah.
they they brought strong style to American television before
Mm-hmm.
WWE did. They were bringing in guys like Kenta and Takeshi and making the partnership with New Japan before that. They were doing stuff with British wrestling before British Strong Style came to WWE.
Dude, that's a great freaking point. I mean, you're totally right. It's a lot of things that are considered hip and trendy today, they've been doing for years.
They were at the forefront of it. I would say, and it's not just WWE. I would say AEW as well.
Yeah.
Um, AEW wouldn't be where it is. There wouldn't be the audience for what they are without Ring of Honor coming in and creating this era of, like I said, work rate first, because that's essentially what AEW does. And we look at all of the stars that came over to AEW from New Japan, or in some way from Ring of Honor, that they all got their push in front of, American fans from Ring of Honor. I
Mm.
mean, All In wouldn't have happened the way that it did without Ring of Honor.
Oh God, yeah, yeah. I mean, and you know the big blow up from that. You know, Cody and the Bucks do this thing. They do that show, and it's they use Ring of Honor's crew, the production guys, even the camera crew. I think where they did all the work behind the scenes, and then they split and said, "Well, that was fun. We're going to do our own company now. We're out." And it's like, dude, there were some hard feelings, I assume, on the Ring of Honor side. I mean, you can imagine why, you know?
Yeah, I'd have to assume, yeah, because they put Bullet Club on American television. They helped to make Bullet Club the phenomenon here in the U.S. And so, again, All In wouldn't have been the success that it would have been. Not even just the fact that they used their infrastructure to make it happen. It's just the fact that they got popular on Ring of Honor's shows as well as New Japan. So I don't, like, again, I don't think the audience would have been there without Ring of Honor.
I think you're right. I think that, you know, and, maybe that's one of the reasons why Ring of Honor is not maybe where they were before, not just because of the pandemic era and all that stuff, empty arenas, and why ROH is still not putting people in the seats is odd to me. At least the crew and family of the wrestlers. I mean, something to have noise. They don't even pipe in crowd chants or crowd noise at all.
Yeah,
And it's just, I mean, it's okay that they're not because it's well, everyone else is doing that. Yeah, but it does make it easier to watch. I mean, it because it makes you feel like that there's a crowd there. I mean, dude, you got to imagine a lot of the Ring of Honor audience is watching AEW every week. I mean, it's got to be like the same crowd, right?
yeah. I would assume a lot of the Ring of Honor crew went to watch AEW. I have to assume a lot of them might also watch NXT.
Yeah.
So watching the Wednesday Night War happen and their trajectory started going downwards, it's got to be crazy to see. Especially, like I said, you're watching NXT and they're doing a riff off of what you made popular. It's got to sting. um,
Yeah.
and also, losing the New Japan partnership to Impact, and now seeing New Japan stars on AEW television now, they opened the door for that, man. And just, I mean, I'm pretty sure you could also make a correlation between AAA working with Impact and other companies and the stuff Ring of Honor was doing with CMLL. Um, like I said, they were the precipice for all of this stuff, and I don't think that they get enough credit for that.
I mean, Ian Riccaboni on Ring of Honor television, pretty much every broadcast put over the fact that they had a partnership with other companies, that they were all cooperative and everything. And when all that stopped, it became, man, now they kind of feel like they're on an island unto themselves now. Like it's,
Yeah, yeah, and
that's a shame.
again, everybody else is doing partnerships now. Impact is doing partnerships. AEW is doing partnerships. We're even in a world where WWE is discussing partnerships. Again, it's just got a sting that you made the sauce and now everybody's running with it.
Right. Everyone's putting their sauce on their pasta now and calling it their brand. Yeah, it's um yeah, it's so funny because this company, dude, as of this year, is 19 years old. This company.
Wow,
I don't know if I even knew that.
I definitely did not.
Yeah, 20 years next year. That's first off, before we get too deep in the weeds here, hats off to Ring of Honor. The crew, the talent, the roster, everybody backstage, the guys who really work, the production crew, the cameraman, everybody involved on down the line. I mean, hanging in there, man, and making a go of it. And dude, Ring of Honor in 2021 is not a bad product. It's really not. Like
No, it's not.
I've read stuff. I've heard all kinds of stuff for the past 2 years. Well, when Cody and the Bucks left and Paige left, and oh man, it's just not. Oh, they're. And I'm like, are you watching the same company I'm watching? Because man, I'm entertained by Ring of Honor. I'm not saying, okay, is it the best Marvel movie I've ever seen? Well, no, but it's. I mean, it's a good show, I think, and the wrestling saves it a lot of the times. I mean, I'm entertained by it, man.
Yeah, I think they're getting back on track right now. They took a massive hit um, during COVID. I think they were hit the hardest of any of the bigger promotions
Yeah, yeah,
because they weren't able to do shows like everybody else. Yeah, having to cancel their women's tournament hurt them. Having to cancel a lot of their big pay per views really hurt them. And then just some of the PR, like I said, the Kelly Klein stuff hurt them. The Marty Scurll stuff hurt them because Marty was their guy for a second. He was prepared to be their head booker. You have to imagine he was going to be one of the biggest stars in a promotion. Um, that really hurt them. They just took a lot of bad hits, back to back to back. And so I think they're back on track with guys like Lethal and Gresham, who was fantastic. Um, yeah, I've just started watching their women's wrestling stuff that comes on YouTube on Wednesdays now, and it looks like
yeah.
they're on a good track. I like what Maria Kanellis is doing. I like a lot of the women that they've brought in so far. Roxy is phenomenal, only 19 years old, and she just looks great. She looks like a young Deanna Purrazzo.
Yeah, she does. And the irony here, and this maybe is a statement I say till midpoint of the podcast where everyone goes, "Oh, I didn't know that." But the irony here is that this company should be on everyone's lips because they are owned by the Sinclair Broadcast Group, who, by the way, has deeper pockets than the McMahon family. I mean, this is their reach in this country is they're the second largest television station operator in the United States by a number of stations. Like number three is not even close. They own operate a total of 193 stations across the country in over 100 markets, covering 40% of American households. 40%.
Yeah.
They've got the budget, kids, to do something with the Little Wrestling promotion, who, by the way, has been around for 19 freaking years. However, if you know anything about Sinclair, they've got some wackadoodle politics happening in that company. Dude, is that what's stopping a forward momentum push for Ring of Honor, or is there a lot more to it than that I don't know about?
Maybe. I feel like they've had some bad, controversies recently, but I mean, there's some bad politics behind just about every wrestling promotion. I mean, look at
Yeah.
WWE. They've got their share
Yes.
of bad politics. You've got your you've got your glimpses of bad politics in AEW. You've got glimpses of bad politics in Impact. It's rampant in the industry. So I don't know if that's totally it. Um, I wonder how much of it is that some fans just don't know where to watch Ring of Honor. I know that you can watch it on Honor Club, um, but just the fact that WWE is on network television and on big known channels like WWE and Fox and AEW's on TNT and even MLW getting a jump to Vice TV. I wonder how much of it is that Sinclair hasn't made that big broadcasting deal. And that's, to your point, they don't really need to, but, how much has that hurt them?
And I'll continue because this is good too. It is the largest owner of stations affiliated with Fox, ABC, and the CW. It owns 4 digital multicast networks: Comet, Charge, Stadium, and TVD. Sports oriented cable networks: Tennis Channel and Bally Sports regional networks, and a streaming service. And owns or operates 4 radio stations in the Pacific Northwest. Again, I say, if you want to do something with this company, dude, Sinclair can put this company on TV right now. I'm telling you, and make a go of it. and we're talking national syndication. We're talking all over the country. I just, I don't. It's like winning the lottery, but not spending it. It's like putting the check in the bank and saying, "Well, we got it if we need it. Let's just don't ever. Let's just live like we always have." I don't get it. It's there. You've got this company who probably could make some money for your larger corporation. I feel like, and I have nothing to back this up. This is just Tom speculating here. I kind of feel like that the people in Sinclair don't really care about the pro wrestling company. They're keeping it around for whatever reason they're keeping it around. But dude, I don't know. It feels like this thing is ready to go today. Today, it doesn't need any work. They've got the talent in place. They got the production values are much better than they were before. You could put them on TV now, and I think it would look great.
Yeah, I
Dude, they don't care, man.
I feel like they are further along in terms of knowing how to put together a great wrestling show and having experience of, how to put together a great wrestling card than AEW, because AEW is still new to it. We're talking about a company that has,
Yes.
like you said, 19 years of experience at that. So they could do this. They could make a huge splash on network television if they were on a bigger channel.
I mean, I'm sitting here thinking. I mean, you've got WWE's got USA. I mean, AEW's got TNT. You would think it wouldn't be TBS. Um, I don't know. I don't know.
Weren't they on I don't think Spike exists anymore. Weren't they on Spike at one point? Or am I
I don't think so.
misremembering?
I don't think so. I don't recall that. I know that here in North Carolina, it seemed like they were on Friday nights late, like really late or something. I could be thinking of ECW now,
Yeah, maybe we're
but it
both thinking
was
of ECW because I think
maybe
ECW was
so.
on on Spike.
That's what it was because they buried them. Spike picked them up, put them on like Friday nights when they were the national network. And yeah, they buried the time. They just stuck them in a death time slot. No one ever watched it. I'm like, I mean, it kind of feels. And dude, the streaming service is forget being the wave of the future. We're already there, kids. In case you've been living under a rock for 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years, whatever it's been, it is the now. Okay,
Yeah,
so let's say that they don't give a crap about national TV. Then push the streaming service. Get behind the streaming. Do something. I mean, how many wrestling fans even know this service even exists? I'm talking
yeah,
about out of the diehard hardcore wrestling audience. How many people even know about it to begin with?
yeah. I definitely think that's part of the problem. Like, if you don't know about Honor Club, or you don't know where to find it, I think that's a bigger problem. I think they don't have the exposure um, that some of these other companies get through having these big television deals. And I mean, I get it. Streaming is the future, and having something like Honor Club is the way to go. But I just feel like they're doing themselves a disservice by not putting the show on some kind of big network television channel.
I mean, you mentioned earlier about WWE maybe going to do business with somebody, and I think MLW has been mentioned. I don't know what kind of terms Court Bauer is on with Vince. I've never heard anything bad. Doesn't mean anything bad's not happening, but I don't know if I've ever heard or read anything bad. But dude, Ring of Honor's right there. Again, like, and it's not like you don't know who they are. If Vince says he doesn't know, listen. If Vince says, "Oh, what's Ring of Honor, pal?" Shut up. Shut up. You got 2/3 of your locker room from Ring of Honor, if not more. Come on, man. What are you
Every
talking about? Come
every
on.
every big star, well, not almost every big star they've had over the last decade has come from Ring of Honor. Come on now. You can't tell me that. That's just as
Yeah.
bad as Trips trying to tell us, "Oh, there was no war, you fans. It was imaginary war." Yeah,
Right.
okay. You can't get that over with me, buddy. Like, we already know what it is. But the thing is, why would they work with Ring of Honor? They have no incentive to do that. They poached all of their stars. Um,
True.
they continue to look like the bigger company. They can continue to flex and sign their biggest stars. So, for them, there's no incentive to work with them. And I kind of
Yeah.
see the MLW thing the same way, and that's why you know, I'll believe it when I see it. I supposedly there are talks with MLW. Supposedly, you know, there are some pretty big sources saying that that's true, but I'm not so certain that that wasn't a way to try and entice guys that want to leave to stay. You know what I mean? If
Yeah.
if one of your biggest free agents and Daniel Bryant is getting ready to finish up his contract, and one of the things you hear him saying is that he wants to be able to work with other companies because he sees other companies doing it. Why aren't we doing the same thing? Then you could easily go, yeah, look, we're trying to work with MLW. See, we're in talks. That doesn't mean they'll actually do it though.
Right.
And maybe they will, maybe they won't. I don't know. Um, but they just don't have the best track record with that.
Yeah, and it reminds me of Vince back in the day talking about helping out Heyman and ECW, and his comment was that he felt like that they if they were in a position to help ECW, they were going to do it, and so they did. Um, we know how that turned up. A lot of ECW's guys became megastars in WWE. Duh, right?
And they basically made ECW into a joke.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, that. And what's funny is that it's one of the rare instances when I personally don't believe that they brought the ECW brand back to kill it. I don't think that was. I think they genuinely thought this is an alternative brand. This is another look for the company with different talent. We can put some of our guys on there, and it could become a viable third brand because there was no third brand at that time. It was just Raw, SmackDown,
Right.
and ECW.
Yeah, and I think it could have worked, but the thing is, ECW worked at its height because it wasn't a corporate thing, because it wasn't this
Yeah.
polished thing. It had this grit to it. And so once you add WWE's production value to it, and some of its squeaky clean like booking, and overly produced segments, it kind of misses the point of what ECW was.
So and I agree totally. I'm just sitting here thinking about the compare and contrast between ROH and WWE, for example. WWE has conditioned the modern pro wrestling audience to like this and to hate that and to love this and to hate that or like or whatever. And it's the truth. They've conditioned. I mean, how many times have we watched a wrestling match in any company and two heels are kicking the crowd and then everyone's looking at the ramp
Yeah,
because they're expecting the babyface to run out. Now, you can say that was happening back during the Crockett days, and it was, but for most modern wrestling fans, that they got that idea from Vince McMahon. It's like, oh well, let's all look at the ramp. No one's looking at the ring. They're looking at the ramp to see what babyface is going to come running down to save the day. And of course, the music has to hit first, or it can't come running down. And it's they condition you to believe this is what wrestling is,
yeah,
and it's not most of the time. But like because they've conditioned people, it has to be big, it has to be pyro, it has to be produced, it has to be glossy, it has to have LED boards, and it has to look like this and have this TV deal. I mean, is that one of the things that keeps people from even checking out Ring of Honor? I mean, AEW is the closest thing to WWE in terms of the look.
yeah. Um,
So,
yeah.
you
Well,
know,
I think it's just a lack of. I think there's just a lack of understanding what Ring of Honor was at its peak and what it still is. I just think, um, because WWE is so great at rewriting history, kind of, and they're at the
yes.
forefront, so it's so easy for them to do it because they're the biggest wrestling company in the world. Everybody knows who they are. They don't know that Ring of Honor is like this smaller thing. So it's kind of like if some creator-owned company um, was putting out books about like this superhero team that was like obscure superhero team. And then Marvel came and hired the same guy that wrote that. And then he brought all those sensibilities to Avengers. And people are like, oh, this is genius. But they don't know that his creator owned book was that before he came to Marvel, they're going to only credit Marvel for that genius. And I feel like that's what happens with this stuff with WWE and Ring of Honor. People are like, oh, this is amazing. This is this is the greatest wrestling I've ever seen. And I feel like they look at NXT in that vein, like, oh, it's it's no frills wrestling. It's not like their other product because it's not as character based, and it's 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 so much high quality wrestling. But that's what Ring of Honor was years before that.
Yeah, they were ahead of the curve. They've been doing this stuff for years. That's something I want to get to here is what separates Ring of Honor from WWE, from AEW, from I mean, I was gonna say New Japan, but I guess if you had to pick a promotion that was the closest thing to Ring of Honor, you'd probably have to say it's New Japan because
Yeah.
New Japan doesn't get too caught up in character, doesn't get too caught up in gimmick. Yeah, their guys will cut promos, but it's a different feel. It's not, let's go backstage again. Let's go back. Oh, let's go with so and so, and she's going to ask him what his thoughts are. Because in WWE, it's always, what are your thoughts? Hey, your tag team party's got set on fire. What are your thoughts? What? 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 And it's every time with those guys. But like New Japan is all about the wrestling. Ring of Honor, dude. One of the things that separates Ring of Honor from everybody else, the pure championship, which they put a huge focus back on over this past calendar year, is the pure championship. They brought it back. I mean, if you were flipping through the channels and weren't that familiar with pro wrestling and saw this, you would almost think it was MMA because it looks that good. And I mean, to me, and God, I don't want to make it sound like I'm crapping on this company because I don't want to crap on them. But is part of the problem not only that WWE overshadows everybody else and they don't have Tony Khan? Well, they might have Tony Khan's budget, but aren't using it. But you can't find them on the dial. You don't know about the Honor Club, and I get all that. I totally get it. But they're not offering the showtime that even AEW is offering. So, like, is that part of the problem that like only the hardcore guys are going to sit there and appreciate the real honest to God wrestling because that's what they're there for. But for the casual fan, it's boring. Do you know what I mean?
I definitely think it's a niche. I think it's a niche thing inside of a niche that is professional wrestling because
Right.
wrestling fandom is a niche fandom, and then you've got
Right.
this other niche that is like, oh, I like pure wrestling, or I like strong style, I like Joshi wrestling, and I think Ring of Honor appeals to that kind of crowd, and it might not appeal to mainstream fans because they're just not into some of the straightforward wrestling or the technical wrestling that you're going to get in the pure wrestling. Um, and I mean, you couldn't have a better guy as the head of your pure division than Jonathan Gresham. But I tell you, I feel like this guy is, you know, easily among the best technical wrestlers in the world right now.
Yeah.
He is firmly on that list, easily probably in the top three. Um, you couldn't have a better you can have a better flag bearer for them right now. And I think it's a shame that more people don't know how good he is.
He's excellent. Like you said, he's one of the best in the world for sure. I love the idea that the Pure Championship and they're putting this over on TV big time. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that Bandito is still their world champion. And they're putting over the fact that, hey, some people feel like the Pure Championship is more important than the world title. I keep thinking, why would you say that about your own world title? Like Bandito has wrestled in the States. It's not like he's stuck in Mexico because of the pandemic. He's not.
I mean,
But
yeah,
I could kind of see that. Not Bandito. Who am I talking about? Roosh. Excuse
Roosh.
me.
Yeah.
Roosh is the world champion.
I simply don't agree with that because what their world championship did for indie wrestling and what it did for wrestling as a whole, like it's invaluable. I mean, I feel like at one point it was the most prestigious wrestling title in the world at one point. I mean, at least in the country.
Mm.
I mean, when you look at all of the names that have carried that thing, I mean, yeah, Samoa Joe, Austin Aries, CM Punk, Daniel Bryan, Nigel McGuinness, Takeshi. I mean, all these guys that have been world champions somewhere else. Eddie Edwards, Loki. The list goes on and on.
Did AJ have it?
I think AJ was just pure champion. I don't think he ever won the world championship.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
But I mean, shoot, Kevin Steen, Roderick Strong,
Mm.
Adam Cole, Kyle O'Reilly.
Mm.
I mean, the list just goes on and on. A guy we might know of, Seth Rollins. Come on.
I've heard of him. That's a fair point. Yeah, that title it means everything. And kids, just because we compare and contrast here, go ask the talent what they think of Ring of Honor, because I guarantee you they'll have nothing but positive things to say. They may not like some of the people behind the scenes in that company, but in terms of what the belts mean, what it all means, we haven't talked about the handshake, the whole code of honor concept. I mean, it definitely separates them. We saw it when Bryan finally wrestled Punk and they shook hands before the match, and I'm watching it going, "Oh my god, that's the best thing ever!" And of course, the commentators aren't going to put over the fact that it's code of honor. It's fine because they weren't even mentioning RH at that time. But I loved it. Any real, I mean, honest to God, fan of Ring of Honor marked out for it, I'm sure. But that was a pretty cool moment. I mean, dude, what about that? That we're talking about the presentation of it. I, again, I sound like I'm trying to be negative. I'm really not trying to be. I guess in my head, I'm trying to explore why this company isn't bigger, maybe not financially, but bigger with most fans. I mean, is the whole pure thing, is it too much maybe? Is it too much to be believed? Like at the end of the day, do we, oh look, this is all silly pro wrestling. We know it's not real. Why can't you just have fun? Do you know what I mean? Am I crazy on that? Or do you think maybe it's too much sometimes?
I think it depends on who who you ask. Some fans might not be into that. I enjoy the fact that Ring of Honor has its own history and mythos. Um,
Yeah.
but some people might not care about that. And I mean, it's some of the same things that I enjoy about New Japan. When 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 the world title is on the line and we see those big, you know, homages, and it shows every champion beforehand, and like you see all this history behind it. I think all of that stuff is cool. But some people might not enjoy that.
It kind of feels like, and dude, we've heard a lot over the past year and a half about AEW's audience. Well, AEW's audience, this is who they're playing to. They're playing to the AEW audience. They're not playing to mainstream television people, mainstream television fans who are just flipping through the channels and might see Dynamite. They don't care about them. They're playing to the hardcore AEW fans. It does feel like that Ring of Honor plays to the hardcore Ring of Honor fan base.
It does.
I don't know if I see. Maybe I do feel maybe the issue for me personally is they all right before I tell you who my guy is, it kind of felt like for the longest time they don't have a guy that can bridge the gap between, okay, this is pure, this is we shake hands, it's legit, everything's of honor, every show we do is of honor. This is honor this and honor that, and honor, it's our code, it's what we do. This is we're not gonna, it's worked for years, we're gonna stick to our guns, and this is what we're gonna do. But they don't have a Showtime guy until Dalton Castle. To me, Dalton
Oh
Castle
man.
should have bridged the gap. He should have made any fan who had never was heard of them turn their head and go, dude, he's awesome. Who's this? Do you know what I mean? Because he's great.
Dalton was amazing. I mean, he had all of the character, he had all of the presentation around him, and they somehow managed to screw it up. I don't know how they did it, but they took the boys away from him. Um,
Yeah.
I I almost feel like right after Cody was champion, they were kind of lost. They didn't know what to do, and it feels almost like they waited a little too long to put the title on Dalton. And then when Dalton didn't work out, they just were like, let's just put it back on Jay Lethal. It's like, okay, and that's not a knock at Jay Lethal. Jay Lethal's great, um,
Right.
but it was almost like they just didn't know what to do with the title. And then you go from that, and you have the probably the biggest show that they could have had in Madison Square Garden. And you put the title on Taven. Like, why? White girl's right there. Like, what are you
Right.
doing? then,
Right.
then you go from that and you put the title on PCO. Huh?
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think Roosh is great now. I think part of his reign has suffered because of COVID, and some of the other stuff that hampered the company last year. But yeah, I mean, I think for the last 3 years they've been struggling to get a world champion that makes their product must see again. Um, Again, when you look at that list that I mentioned earlier of those guys that were champions, those are all megastars. I mean, if you don't believe that they're crossover stars in terms of what they can do in a ring, these are legends. I mean, like I said, Nigel McGuinness is a legend. Uh, Daniel Bryan is a legend. And that all happened because of the history they had as Ring of Honor World Champion. Um, and I don't feel like they've had a champion that has been that in years. Probably since Cody. I think Cody was the last big success as a Ring of Honor World Champion.
I mean, honestly, I agree with that. I just wonder, and like you said, they messed up Dalton, and I don't know why they would because it was working. And when something works, you leave it alone. I don't know, man. I'm just if I was handed the company, and it's one of those, let's play armchair quarterback. All right. If I'm handed the company and I'm told, Tom, you got 6 months. Say you got a year. You got a year to get this Ring of Honor thing on the map. You got a year to get this thing in front of people. What's your first move? I put the belt on Dalton Castle. And I link him up to every available talk show in any local market and anywhere that Ring of Honor has ever ran a show. And I would get him on the morning talk show. I'd have him on the circuit as soon as possible. Tom Clark's 6M podcast is sponsored in part by Radius Law Group. Every day, Radius helps individuals, families, small businesses, and nonprofit organizations throughout North Carolina, Florida, and Pennsylvania resolve their legal issues by providing effective legal counsel in the areas of estate planning, as well as elder law and Medicaid. Radius Law holds the radical belief that working with a lawyer can indeed be enjoyable. So give them a call at 1-800-519-5667 for more information and tell them that Tom Clark's 6M podcast sent you. My next step would be late night, and I would find a way to get a hook, whether it's an actress or an actor or celebrity of some kind, even if it's just a YouTube celebrity, and then we go up from there. But I find every way possible to get Dalton Castle's name and face on everywhere, create his own YouTube show, and he's the star of it. And I guarantee you it's going to get over. That dude has such charisma and such personality, and he's funny and he's good in the ring. He's got the total package.
Yeah.
And then when you get them to the table through that kooky Dalton Castle, then you give them the pure title. But you got to get them to the table first.
Yeah.
And to me, that's how you do it.
Man, you've got the potential for guys. You've got Lee Moriarty hanging around that company. You haven't signed him, but he's been around.
Right.
That guy, he's the guy. If you had the conversation for the greatest independent wrestler at this moment, Lee Moriarty has to be at the top of that list. He's got to be a guy, if you're Ring of Honor, that should be in your future. If the plan is not to sign him soon, it should be. And they've got other guys. I really like O'Shea. They've got guys that they can push to the forefront if it's not Dalton. But they've just got to get there. And if they don't feel like they have guys, there are guys they can sign. There are guys out there.
And they've got EC3 now. He's there.
Yeah. Yeah, there's I mean, when you've got Daniel Bryan back on the board, though, the idea of Daniel Bryan coming back to Ring of Honor and bringing the company back into this new era, it's very appealing. I mean, I would have to imagine they have to offer him something. I have to imagine everybody's going to offer him something. But the idea of Daniel Bryan going back to Ring of Honor would definitely get more eyes on Ring of Honor for sure.
Yeah, and before the whole Skrull thing happened, he was working his way up the food chain.
Yeah.
Yeah. In Ring of Honor.
It's really sad that happened because I feel like Marty is a star, man. Marty had all the makings of a star. When I tell you, um, his match with Okada was my favorite match on the All In card. Um, it, yeah, he could have been the guy. He was already working with NWA, um, and I felt like that was the place for him to be. He would have gotten lost in the shuffle if he went to AEW, in my opinion, because they have so many. They have so many stars. He wouldn't have been a world champion, but he could have easily been a world champion with Ring of Honor and been the face of that company. Um, yeah, it's disappointing. Um, I don't want to make this just a I'm disappointed as a fan because I didn't get the wrestling I wanted. It's disappointing that he did some pretty gross things that
Yeah.
aren't right. He shouldn't have been. He shouldn't have put himself in that position. Um, and he should have handled it better when everything came out as well.
Oh yeah, yeah. Because it's like, and I would never try to understand a man's logic behind things that this guy allegedly did ever. Um, but you read his comments during the whole period of all that happening, and I don't think he even believed he did anything wrong. I don't think it was him trying to run from anything. I legit think that he didn't see the issue, which is disturbing as well. I get it, but at the same time, it's like, well, I mean, maybe if you pursue charges, you pursue charges, then you pursue counseling, then you pursue let's get into this guy's head and find out why he doesn't think it's a big deal. And not that he should be treated any better than anybody else just because he's a wrestler. I'm not suggesting that, but like, I don't know. We've seen people hide from this stuff. I mean, Kevin Spacey's never been seen or heard from again. I mean, I think the second it came out about him, he just dropped off the face of the earth. He didn't comment at all that I know of, and
Yeah,
he's done. But like Skrull kind of kept talking, and I kept thinking, so did he do it or not? I don't know. It's weird.
yeah, yeah, he's just handled it really, really poorly. I think
Yeah,
um I think there was a way that he could have dealt with this and continued on possibly. Not to say that, people that do things like this should be allowed always to continue to be a part of the industry, but I
sure.
just think that the way he handled it, didn't help him at all. And it certainly didn't help Ring of Honor. Again, they had their own stuff going on with the Kelly Klein stuff.
Yeah.
That was just really unfortunate. Yeah, and I still hope Kelly Klein comes out of this and ends up wrestling for another company and doing well. I just think everything around this story was just really sad. Uh,
It's a train wreck with the Kelly Klein thing for sure.
yes, and I mean that just goes into their women's division because their women's division is only what, like 3 years old. I think
Yeah,
Women of Honor tournament was what, 2017, I believe.
that sounds right.
Um, but that again, when you look at when you're talking about people that were on the precipice of everything that was starting to happen in the country, Stardom was just becoming more of a fixture because you had Kyrie signing with WWE. You had EO coming over eventually. And
Mhm.
Ring of Honor was right there before it really blew up with WWE because they had already started working with um, Mayu Iwatani, and they already had another Joshi wrestler and Sumi Sakai as their first champion. So they were right there. They had I'm pretty sure they had other people. They had Hana Kimura, right? Didn't she? Wasn't she in the Women of Honor tournament?
I think so. Yeah.
She was. She lost in the first round. That's right. She lost to Sumi in the first round. Um,
Right.
but yeah, you had Hana Kimura. You had ACK. You had so many. You had Deonna Purrazzo before Deonna Purrazzo became Deonna Purrazzo. So you had all the makings of a great women's division, and it just didn't take off like it should have. I'm hoping that changes now with a woman at the head of it. It seems like Maria has good ideas. It seems like she is is helping the women out quite a bit. I really like what I've seen so far. So hopefully it's a good sign. But man, some of this feels like they've been in a good position and then they couldn't get out of their own way.
Maybe that's the issue is that they're like you just put it, they're getting their own way. Back to the Skrull thing for a second, man. He and Flip Gordon and Brody King and PCO's Villain Enterprises at
Oh
one time
man,
was the hottest act in the business, bar none. I'm sorry, they were the
man.
hottest act.
Flip
So good.
Gordon was hot. I mean, white hot at one point. At the time of All In, Flip Gordon was hot.
Yes.
And you talk about screwed it up with this goofy heel gimmick that he started doing. It's like, what are you doing, bro? Like, what is this? This yeah, this anti-vax conspiracy stuff. It's like, what are
Oh,
you doing? It's like, and supposedly it's all the work, but it's like, no, 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 this isn't the time for that.
yeah, no kidding.
Um, yeah, just weird timing with all this stuff. But yeah, Villain Enterprises was, man, it was ready to take off. I mean, you didn't have Bullet Club, but you had something really interesting in Villain Enterprises, and man, they just, boy, again, this is just, they had so much controversy on top of controversy, and it just screwed them up.
And Skrull has parted ways. They're officially done. I think they Ring of Honor made it official in January, so they're done.
Right.
It is what it is. But here's my angle. Here's my angle. Skrull don't have that job anymore. He was head booker. I mean, he was going to get paid too. I don't remember the number, but it was supposed to be
Oh yeah,
pretty well, pretty
he's
good.
gonna get paid.
I mean, Daniel Bryan's not doing anything.
This is what I'm
So
saying. If you want to
yeah,
bring him back to Ring of Honor, he's the guy that could bring that company into a new era.
yeah,
And he doesn't have to wrestle to do it.
right.
There's so much that he could do. There's so many people that want to work with him. Um,
Oh my God. Yeah, you're right, man.
there's so many guys that he can help bring to that company. There's partnerships that he could build.
Mm.
It makes so much sense to bring him back in. I don't know if that's what he wants to do, but man, if you're Ring of Honor, you've got to be offering him the keys to the kingdom at this point.
I mean, I think I started this within the first 10 minutes of this episode. I don't get why they're not getting behind this. It's they're looking around at Tony Khan, who's never done this ever, drawing 1 million people and running shows all over the country before the pandemic hit, and selling out arenas, getting a national TV deal. This guy who's never done it before. Meanwhile, you have a company for 19 years. This company's been in existence. You're not going to do anything. My mind is blown. Dude, it almost feels like it's a tax write-off for Sinclair. That's what it feels like. Like it's
Well, I mean, they had some pretty high successes. I mean, getting getting the G1 Supercard into
okay.
Madison Square Garden is a huge deal. I mean,
Sure.
what was the number that was like the first non WWE show at Madison Square Garden in about 60 years?
Oh, it was a big number.
It was
Yeah.
huge. So I think that was big, but I think it hurt them because New Japan looked like the better promotion the entire night, and that that was sad because it was a good show,
Yeah.
but it was like all of the Ring of Honor elements of it just paled in comparison to all of the New Japan stuff. I mean, and bringing out Enzo and Cass for the tag match, it
Oh,
was like, come on, you've got God here, you've got so many good things going. Why do that? I mean, and again, that night, that was the night to crown Marty. You had everything going. You had Madison Square Garden. You had more eyes on your product than, you had a perfect scenario during WrestleMania weekend. It was perfect. And you picked Taven. Like, what? Why? Why are you doing?
it's it's funny to go back and look at the big what if they had put the belt on Skrull and then everything came out about him later, where they've been more inclined to keep him and take him off the radar for a while, take him off the shelf, and just or take him off TV, put him on the shelf, and say, look, you just need to ride it out. Let's do some damage control, get yourself right. You're going to get counseling. You're going to talk to whoever you need to talk to. You're going to talk to an attorney. You're going to do whatever you need to do, and then we'll revisit it in 6 months, and then maybe he's back. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, you would think that being head booker is more important than being the champ, which he was the head booker, and they still let him go. And the end zone casting, if you weren't going to mention, I was, because that was a train wreck. And supposedly God didn't even know about it.
Oh,
Uh, yeah.
the greatest thing about all of that is we got Tama throwing the Ring of Honor tag belt against the wall after the show, which was
Yes.
amazing.
Yes. Yeah. And they're New Japan for life. They are. They're. I don't think those two are ever going to leave New Japan. I mean, you say never. Who knows what could happen tomorrow? But they seem like they don't give a crap about any other company in the world except New Japan, and that's totally fine. But like, I don't know if you're Ring of Honor, do you reach out and at some point, if you know their contracts are coming up, do you reach out, make a third party connection, say, look, here's this money. Why don't you bring everything you've been doing on social media, bring it to the company, bring it to us. Let's do this. Well, I know we got guys here that I know you'd like to work, and we've got great we got some tag teams, the Briscoes or whatever, and we'll pair you up. And if nothing else, stir the pot, get fans talking, I don't know, dude. In my head, I guess maybe the Ring of Honor people don't feel like anything's broken, but in my head, I'm fixing stuff or trying to.
No,
I don't know.
but I mean, I think the thing is we're looking at it now in 2021 of why can't they get this together? But again, 3 years ago they had it together. They had everything going that AEW and other companies are trying to do now, and
Right. Trying to do. Yeah.
it's 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 crazy that in that time they've kind of lost everything. They lost their partnership with New Japan. They've lost some of their bigger stars. They just lost their head booker. Um, yeah, just that. Yeah, everything that's happened over the last few years is just. I mean, it's crazy. So I don't know. It's just kind of like, how do you get back to a good place? I don't know the answer to that, and I mean, they better figure it out soon because, like I said, this is the most competitive the industry has been in a long time, and I already feel like they've fallen out of the top three. But you've got MLW making a real push, um, and they've got a guy in Jacob Fatu who is a legitimate star. They've got some other guys that I'm sure Ring of Honor would love to have, and like Myron Reed, and I think Leo is still doing shows with them right now. I don't know if he's contracted, but man, I mean, I definitely feel like MLW is on a better trajectory right now than Ring of Honor is.
Yeah. They've got the Von Erich brothers.
Yes, yes,
Um,
they're. I think they're in a great position. I don't
yeah.
know what's going on with their women's division. They announced it and then it just disappeared.
Yeah, I don't know what happened with that either. I enjoy the MLW product. It's different. They consider themselves their niche is they're hybrid. Hybrid of mixed martial arts and pro wrestling and lucha and sort of bringing all these different styles to the table. You got to have a hook, man. You can't just show up and say I got money. Well, I guess you can for Tony Khan, but Tony Khan's hook was, hey, here's a bunch of independent guys that most of you don't even know. We're gonna put them on TV every week. And I don't know. I mean, I don't want to start suddenly bashing AEW here, but like you're pushing 2 years, almost 2 years this fall on TV. You're kind of where you were when you started. I mean, and it's great that they're still going. I want them to succeed, like I want RH to succeed. But at some point, when do you start growing? Not just your locker room, but numbers. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
Well, I mean, I think not having to compete on Wednesdays is helping them out.
Yeah,
I think their internet content is also helping them out, and I feel like that is a part of what Ring of Honor is starting to do, and they need to push more on that side of doing um, YouTube content because I think some people are like, it's on YouTube, it's not on TV. But the thing is, more people have access to YouTube than they have access to cable television because not everybody has
sure.
cable. And the more you get, clips of your wrestling out there, that's going to get people to watch your shows. And I think that's the idea of what they're doing with their women's stuff. And it's the right call. I think they should do more YouTube content. I think that would help them a lot.
I agree with that. And dude, put a subscription-based service on the YouTube channel.
Yeah, I mean,
Like on,
yeah,
yeah,
there's stuff they're doing they can do, and I think there's stuff that AEW is doing right on the internet side that is helping them a lot. I think they've embraced internet wrestling fans in a way that some other companies haven't, and I think that that's a part of what Ring of Honor is missing right now.
just the names, and you talked about them earlier. The guys that come through that company and put Ring of Honor on the map. Joe, Punk, Brian, Claudio, now Cesaro, right?
Yeah,
Tyler Black, now Seth Rollins, Steen, now Owens, Generico, now Zayn. I mean,
yeah.
it the amount of guys that have come through there. I mean, that company was built on the backs of these guys who are now main event stars today.
I mean, they had Kingston at one point. Um, Yeah, they had they had AJ at one point. I mean, he was never
Yep.
world champion, but they had AJ for a hot minute, and he was doing some great matches with them. Um, Shoot, I mean, just like I just sat here and said that WWE is doing a covers version of some of their stuff. You can make the same case right now. This Young Bucks versus SCU thing that's going on. It's essentially Kazarian and Daniels versus Bullet Club. It's essentially the
Yeah,
same thing.
yeah, it totally is. Yeah, because Matt and Nick are now, hey, look, we're douchebags again. We're Bullet Club again. See, hey, too sweet. Yeah, totally. This is a different podcast for a different time, but every time they start acting like that, I'm thinking, no one's falling for that, right? Like, come on, you can't. I don't know.
I
It
just
seems like
I just think
I
they're
don't.
better as heels. I think they're naturally good trolls. They're naturally good at being unlikable.
Oh, I agree with that.
And I just think they work best as heels. When they are trying to get us to like them but still bragging about how much money they have and how great they are, it just doesn't work.
Right. Yeah, no, that's a good point. I don't know, man. And I remember Foley being in Ring of Honor for like 10 minutes for something. And he was in the ring. I think it was after Punk and Brian had worked, or Punk and Joe had worked. And he made the comment that he would love to see both those guys in WWE. And the crowd starts booing. And Foley's like, hold on. I know. I get it. You're booing me. He's like, but I'd love to see these two guys in WWE if only so they could have the worldwide platform where they could show off and be given the respect they deserve on a worldwide stage. And of course, he got applauded for that. But he's got a point. I think maybe in a nutshell, that's kind of the underlying issue here is that, you know, even though AEW is still not considered top dog, and maybe they never will be, and that's fine, they've got the national TV deal.
Yeah.
Um,
Um
Impact is on TV every week. It may not be it's CBS tonight, it's Impact, but it's still they're on every week.
yeah, and I think I definitely believe that is a part of what has caused some people to look past Ring of Honor because the ongoing trend throughout this episode is us saying that it's a stepping stone for somebody to be bigger somewhere else. Um, and I feel like AEW has done a great job of saying like, no, 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 we're not WWE, we're not as big as them, but we are a healthy alternative if this is something different that you want to watch. And I think Impact in some ways has done the same thing. They've differentiated themselves enough to make themselves an alternative. And I think Ring of Honor has played up storylines where guys are leaving and becoming bigger somewhere else, and it has made for great television, but it's almost been to their detriment. Because I mean, that was Tyler Black's storyline when he left, and it was a big part of Punk's final run with
Yeah.
the company. And I mean, shoot, we haven't even talked about guys like Chris Hero and all these guys that have come through there, and they got snagged up in you know didn't end up being anything when they went to WWE. They just kind of they just kind of were there. Um, so I I just feel like they have to step away from that idea that they are, just here to help guys um get credible and become bigger stars somewhere else. They have to become an alternative like some of these other companies are trying to be.
Yeah, they've got to find a way to put themselves out there. I mean, it's to your point, if you follow them on social media, then you know that every chance they get, they're doing like a flashback Friday or a throwback Thursday, and they're showing footage of guys who are on WTV right now, and they do it all the time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, God, you're making it known that all these great guys that no longer work for you. It's like, dude, what's the deal? Like, do you cash in and you get the hits where you can get them and get the money where you can get them, get the ad revenue where you can? Because why not? Because you can use their likeness because that's how it worked.
Well,
Or do you just focus on who you have now?
well, it's interesting because Impact kind of does the same thing, but they do it in such a
Yes.
funny and tongue-in-cheek way. I don't know who runs their Twitter account, but they're fantastic. And so it's like there's a hard line you could take here. You can point at the fact that you've had all these stars come through your doors, but if it's only just to get that quick nostalgia pop, or look, we had Punk before he was Punk, and we had this guy before he was that. It's like, yeah, that's great, but you have to do it in an interesting way. You have to actually point back to your content, like this is what we're doing now too.
Yeah, and it's I'm remembering back to a show that Heyman did at one point where it's they was it TNA, it was then it was TNA then was courting Heyman to come on board, right? And Heyman's pitch supposedly was, if it they wouldn't let me do it because it's not, I wouldn't give them what they wanted, because TNA at the time had Hogan and Flair and all the guys, because they were making some sort of run, wink wink, nudge nudge, say no more, making a run on Monday nights, or trying to. But Heyman's pitch was, look, this locker room is about the future. It's not about the past. It's not about yesterday. Even though we got a lot of respect for Flair and Hogan and all these other guys, and he's like, it should be, the entire show is built around the new star. Every main event is built around the new talent, and you can have the veterans there, but they're only there in supporting roles only. So you have Flair cut a promo, and you have Flair say, yeah, I was great in my day, and the Horsemen, we ran wild, but I got to tell you something, man. I'm here to, that Jay Lethal kid, man. He's got something. That's who I'm here to see. I'll buy a ticket if I have to. And so his idea was, let's use these guys, use them to put over the talent that you already have. And according to him, he was, nope, that's not going to happen. And it never worked out, and they never came to a deal, because he's like, anybody over the age of, I'm wanting to say, he said 40 or something. He's like, you're not welcome in my locker room, because that's not what we want here. And so at the time, you're like, oh, it's Heyman and he's saying all this. But dude, flash forward now, he kind of has a point. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I definitely think they could use somebody like Heyman or someone to that degree, that has a vision for the company moving forward. Um, I think that would help them a great deal. Um, and I don't think it helps to, look backwards. I think they should be trying to groom new stars, and there are plenty of guys they could use to do
And not for nothing, as wackadoodle as Cornette has become,
that.
I mean, dude, I thought he had a good run there. It seemed like that he had good ideas and was getting along okay with everybody backstage. And it depends on who you ask.
Everybody but Kevin Owens.
Right.
I don't think he was getting along with Sammy either, but I don't know if it was as bad as Owens.
I mean, yeah, and Cornette's not shy, kids. He'll tell you what he thinks, and oftentimes you don't want to hear it, but it is what it is. But I mean, it just goes to show that with the right veteran at the right time, and dude, I'm sorry, I go back to Brian. I think it's the right time and it's the right fit, and he doesn't have to be full time, and he can be full time behind a desk. and doesn't have to put his body through any more wear and tear. He can work when he wants to, and he can raise his family and be with his wife, and not have to drive all over, all over the country or fly all over the country. He doesn't have to do that right now. So like, I don't know. I think you call Daniel Bryan, you give him whatever money he wants, and you bring him in and say, look, like you said, here's the keys. We're giving you the car. Get us there.
Here,
You
I,
know?
I'll make this point with you. There are dozens, I mean dozens of guys with WWE right now that I would love to see make the jump to Ring of Honor. And if Daniel Bryan went there because he vouched
Mm,
for them at WWE, we have this all on record that Kofi Mania happened because of Daniel Bryan.
yeah.
The push that was gonna happen with Mustafa Ali, that was because of Daniel Bryan. The stuff um with Grand Metalik that we got a little bit of, that was also Daniel. This stuff with Gulak resigned because of Daniel. Daniel Bryan goes to Ring of Honor, and you have a mass exodus of people that leave WWE. Maybe they don't all want to go to AEW anymore. Maybe they want to work with Bryan because Bryan had vouched for them with WWE. I think the idea of Daniel Bryan with Ring of Honor and getting joined by somebody like Mustafa Ali, who was a guy that could easily be the face of a company.
Oh yeah.
Daniel Bryan booking or even wrestling with Ring of Honor with Mustafa Ali there, that's money. You could if you could get half of the guys from the 205 Live roster on Ring of Honor, you'd have money. I mean, there's so many guys there that are amazing and they're doing nothing. I mean, look at Cedric. I mean, look at like I said, Metalik. I mean, look at Tozawa.
Yeah.
I mean, and
I mean,
I would sing Gulak's praises to the heavens. Gulak is another guy that is incredible. He would thrive in the pure division.
oh my God, are you kidding? Absolutely. Him versus Gresham? Holy
Come on,
God.
man. But if you could get some of those guys to leave and go with him, that would be it. I think that would help Ring of Honor tremendously.
And I don't want to hear they don't have the budget. They've got the budget. Kick the money to this company. All you Sinclair executives who listen to the 6M podcast on a regular basis. Uh, Kick the money to the freaking company, man. God, my God, I don't know. Dude, I'm telling you, it feels to me like a bunch of rich old white dudes who are all Republicans saying, "Oh, wrestling, whatever," and they don't take it seriously and they don't see the potential. And I'm thinking,
Well,
you've never heard of Tony Khan? You don't know who Tony Khan is? This guy came from out of nowhere. How is this hard?
yeah. And I mean, I think they've also got to look at the fact that, the face of wrestling is changing.
Yeah,
The fact that not Gresham, but Jay Lethal is the only black Ring of Honor world champion is also a problem. You've got so many guys that you can sign that could be fantastic as their world champion. Um, Again, like I said, if you could get Daniel to come over and you can get some of these guys that look up to Daniel to sign, sky's the limit.
yeah. And I mean, I'd pitch it to him as a marathon, not a sprint. That's what we all like to say, right? I mean, honestly, pitch it to him like, look, we don't expect results next month. 12 months from now, let's see where we are. That's how I would pitch it to him and say, look, you got 12 months. What can you do?
Yeah.
Pitch to me what you would do for this company if we signed you today.
I mean, look at it this way. I mean, just what I just said about guys like Daniel and all these guys that I feel like could go to Ring of Honor and be fantastic. There's not that many people that are leaving WWE and they're going to Ring of Honor. A lot of them are going to Impact or they're going to AEW.
Yep.
Um, they've got to become a viable option again. And until they do that, they're going to struggle. I mean, they could always sign great indie wrestlers out there. There are a ton of them that they can still sign. There are a ton of guys they can get from Japan. I mean, it's going to be harder because WWE has stuck their fingers into Britain and Japan, but there are guys they can sign. But they've got to become a viable option again. It's it's a shame that out of the women that just left WWE, the only one I've heard say that they are interested in Ring of Honor is Chelsea Green. You telling me that Ring of Honor could not use Mickey James right now? Someone that has as much
Mm.
experience as she does and has great ideas. She could do so much for that company.
Yeah, and while you got guys collecting belts, I mean, why is Billy Corgan not doing business with Ring of Honor right now?
I don't know, man. That's a good question. I mean, but if you're if you're NWA and you're looking at them and you're looking at they've just burned out two huge partnerships. CMLL is now going off on their own and not they're not dealing with Ring of Honor anymore. They lost New Japan. It just looks bad.
Yeah,
Um, and I mean, it's a shame because they. I feel like I repeated myself with they created the lane for all of this stuff to be what it is right now.
they need a TV deal, pure
They
and simple.
they do, and I just think they need someone to step in with a vision to take over. Um, and I mean, I assume that that's what Marty was in the picture to do, but they've got to work fast and replace him.
Yeah, I mean, how many people would have wanted to come work for Marty? And how many people respected that guy and said, "Man, this guy gets it. I could have a good match with Marty. I could have a good feud with Villain Enterprises. These guys are on
Yeah,
point. They're working." Oh my God.
there were guys that wanted to work with him.
Yeah.
Man, I mean, but again, when you look at guys that are in that circle that are considered like massive indie darlings that could be there, Ricochet could easily be there, man.
Oh man.
Easily.
Yeah. No kidding. Yeah. Yikes. Yeah. Wow. That's good stuff. Bandito versus Ricochet. Are you kidding?
Come on, man. If Ricochet could easily be their world champion.
Yeah.
Easily.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good stuff. Yeah. And now I'm fantasy booking in my head. Yeah, for as many people as WB signs, we all know that so many guys and gals slip through the cracks because they just, well, pal, we don't have anything for you. We're at
Yeah.
an impasse.
I mean I wonder why they haven't brought Chris Hero back to do something as well. I mean, he doesn't necessarily have to wrestle either, but he's a guy that has a ton of experience and he could bring some goodwill back to the company. I don't know that he's doing anything else.
He resurfaced somewhere. I can't remember where he resurfaced. I don't think it was Ring of Honor, but it seems to me he's resurfaced somewhere. I can't recall, but I remember seeing him and I was thinking, oh, it's cool, Chris is back. But like I can't tell you where it was.
I mean, yeah, I don't know, man. They've got to step up and they've got to become a viable option again. And that's not just for viewers, but they've got to become a viable option for other wrestlers to sign with them. Um, and I know they've got these black stains on their record right now, but you got to move forward.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Um, Yeah, I'm looking up about Hero right now, and I swear to you, I saw him. I'm trying to remember what show I was watching when he showed back up. Um, but yeah, WWE it seemed like thought a lot of that guy because he was there for a long time. Seemed like, and they were using him on TV, and I kept thinking, man, Chris is not in good shape. He hasn't been in good shape in years. Not that he's struggling with his weight. Maybe he's healthy. Maybe he's perfectly healthy. He's fine, but he's sure not the guy that we saw wrestling Punk back in the day. So, but they used him all the time, and dude, I've seen him live, and he totally gets his character. He's very good in front of fans. He's good in the ring. His weight hasn't stopped him from getting around, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, he's just still a great in-ring competitor. He's still top of his game in that avenue. And I mean, when they gave him all of the new guys and he kind of became like the gatekeeper for new stars in NXT, he was great in that role because he was going to give you all the great NXT matches. He's going to give you good takeover matches. Even when he went over to NXT UK for a little bit, he's going to give you the great matches. but I just don't think they ever saw anything more in him.
Yeah,
And
I
that's a
think you're
shame.
probably right.
Uh, but yeah, and I think he's one of those guys where he could bring goodwill back to the company. If you wanted to do the nostalgia thing with him, you could do it. Um, I don't know, man. I don't know what else he has going. I have to imagine him becoming an indie wrestler again, hurt because of the COVID, and he wasn't able to tour. Um, but I think that's the story with a lot of people.
Yeah, and who knows how all this plays out. I mean, 6 months to a year from now, we could be talking about, man, Ring of Honor's really come back and they got this TV deal coming up and they're going to do great things. I mean, I hope so because I think if there's one thing that most fans who actually enjoy the product and want to see it thrive is that we all want to see these companies succeed, and it doesn't matter, if the company's trying to do it the right way and trying to pay respect to the business and put on the best matches possible and all that stuff, and they want these companies to succeed. I don't want to see WWE go down the tubes. I'd like to see it get better.
Yeah,
I want to see Ring of Honor succeed, man. It's about wanting more places for the talent to work and more places that you can possibly be entertained by the wrestling that you love.
absolutely. I want everyone to succeed. And just everything that I believe the Ring of Honor has done for the wrestling industry, and just how much how much they have moved the needle over the last 20 years. I think that they should be in a better position that they are. And I just want them to do better. That's all.
Yeah, for sure. There's too much history there to just let this company go, and I don't want to see them go anywhere. It's a fun topic because we can always revisit this thing later if and when something great happens, and hopefully it does sooner rather than later. I don't want to hear that they almost made it to 20 years, but they folded up shop because Sinclair sold them and sold all this whatever and like the trademarks or whatnot. Hopefully it'll never come to that. I don't want to see it happen, but
Yeah.
um,
I mean, we could do an entire where are they now on every Ring of Honor world champion. That could
oh
be a
yeah,
huge thing because I mean, the amount of success that they've had in making stars there. It's crazy.
yeah, no doubt about it. And as you said before, the fact that WWE, and I used the word rated earlier. I don't know if I necessarily mean rated locker room, but it sure feels like it. Um, Talent, storylines, things like that. Yeah, I mean, it kind of feels like they kind of came in and took what they wanted and all that crap. But
Yeah. I mean, yeah, cuz I mean, I for sure do not believe that Kenta would have signed with WWE if he didn't have those big matches with Daniel Bryan and become a notable name because of Ring of Honor.
yeah, I agree with that. I do think there's something to be said for that. So you got me thinking about this. About world champions and Ring of Honor. I mean, man, it does. All right, we've mentioned a bunch of them: Lethal, Joe. Um, let's see, McGinnis, Roosh, Danielson, Adam Cole, Austin Aries, which we don't have to spend a lot of time talking about that wackadoodle.
Oh man,
Um,
Austin Aries with Ring of Honor. Man, you
yes,
could say everything about how problematic the guy is, but guy can wrestle his ass off.
he can. Yes, he can. He just needs to shut up.
Yeah,
Get over himself. Cody, as we said before, Christopher Daniels, PCO held the title. Michael Elgin, which there again, it's a whole different podcast, kids.
yeah, yeah.
We've not even talked about Jerry Lynn in Ring of Honor.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he's one of those guys that, when you mention ECW and other companies and how he came from somewhere else and made a name somewhere else, and he's one of the few guys that did that and actually had a great run with Ring of Honor for a little while. Like, is it Jamie Noble's another one like that?
Yeah. Xavier, which I forgot all about that guy. Xavier passed away last year, August 16th. I didn't even know that.
Yeah, yeah, it's really sad. Um,
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you've got a lot of guys that have come through there, but another thing that you got to look at here is there's quite a few problematic guys that. I mean, we've
Yeah.
already said Austin and Elgin, but I mean, as much as I love Loki as a wrestler, a little problematic.
Yeah, and it's really not. It's probably not really any more worse than any other profession. I mean, if you have a big enough profession, you're going to have some nut jobs in it because that's it's a slice of you know just a cross section of different kinds of people, and you're always going to find a bad egg in the dozen somewhere. So
Yeah,
um, people look at wrestling as being full of oddballs and stuff, and I guess it is to a certain degree. But as far as the outlandish political views and stuff, dude, that's everywhere.
yeah, absolutely. Um, yeah, I mean, man, you can't say enough about the who's list of guys that have come through there and held their world title.
Yeah, it's good stuff. And all those guys, most of those guys went on to bigger and I don't want to say better things, but went on to bigger things.
I mean,
Um,
Punk is the biggest example. I mean, at one point, Punk was the biggest star in professional wrestling, and I would die on that hill.
oh, I agree. Working semi main event matches or even the curtain jerk as world champion and or as WWE champion too. And you're like, how is this guy not the main event tonight? He's the WWE. I'm like, even when they gave him the WWE title, they still kind of treat him like the world champion, which they never gave the world champion anything.
Yeah,
Crazy. I mean, can we say that Punk is the most successful former Ring of Honor talent of all time?
I would say so. Daniel Bryan's got to be a close second.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, you can make a strong case that Daniel Bryan is probably more successful. I think in terms of superstardom and crossover stardom, I think Punk still has him beat, but you can't go wrong with Daniel Bryan either. I feel like Daniel Bryan's going to go down as one of the greatest of all time.
And maybe instead of going the route of Dalton Castle on the talk show circuit, you send Bryan because Bryan's now the guy. And
That's what I.
mainstream fans may actually know who he is. And
He's, yeah, I mean, I know that's why I'm like, if he's the guy that you want to bring in and make him your head booker, he's the guy that could go around and get you the mainstream appearances that you need to get more eyes on your product. Um, I mean, the more and more I think about it, it just would be the perfect thing for him to go back to Ring of Honor. I wouldn't be mad at it, whatever he decides to do. If he decides he wants to go and all of a sudden start wrestling with New Japan tomorrow, I would be super excited about that. Wherever he wants to go, I'm here for it. Even if he wants to stay, I'm not mad at him. Whatever he wants to do, he's earned the right to make that decision.
I mean, the truth is, he's probably not going to go anywhere. He's probably going to re-sign with WWE.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not putting too many eggs in the basket that he's leaving
Sure.
quite yet. But I'm just thinking if he is well, we know he's a free agent because his contract expired, but if they haven't locked him up again yet, I have to imagine that everybody's got to be ringing his doorbell and calling him right now.
And again, kids, when you listen to this, we have no idea what's going to happen. So
Yeah.
we could be this whole thing with Ring of Honor, maybe just a pipe dream, or maybe it's happened. Um, maybe he's in New Japan wrestling Minoru Suzuki. Holy
Yeah,
God.
I would love it. I mean, yeah, you can't. I again, you just can't go wrong. Whatever he wants to do at this point. He's made tons of money with WWE. He's done plenty with them over 10 years. That I could see him deciding, all right, I've been there, done that. I can do something else. Um, I don't know. I mean, you can say the same thing with Joe. Joe had a decent enough run with NXT. Um, but nobody anywhere booked him as well as Ring of Honor did. His run as world champion is probably one of the better world championship runs in this country. I've shoot up the last decade or so, I would say. Um, I strongly believe that. I mean, you can't come up with a world title reign that was that dominant outside of like Okada. Not in recent time.
Big shoes to fill with talking about Okada. I mean, Bryan versus Okada.
Yeah, I mean that's what I'm saying. If he wants to go to New Japan all of a sudden, I can't
Ooh,
see him deciding at 40 years old that I want to do all of these, strong style matches all of a sudden. But
sure.
I'd be here for it if he wanted to.
Oh yeah,
There's plenty for him to do. I mean, the idea of him being with New Japan and they're partnering with him, and he's been talking up Omega an awful lot. The
very
idea
true.
of him wrestling Omega is, yeah, I feel like that would open a lot of doors for both companies.
I mean, if he wrestles Omega, Bryan's calling that match. I don't think Omega's calling that match.
No, for sure. For sure. Um, but again, that's one of those things that you're talking about that would put AEW on the map. That would put Omega on a completely different stratosphere. I
Yeah,
feel like, because I mean, when you look at the guys that he helped to elevate, I mean, Kenta had his run with Noah, but a lot of people don't know that stuff. The Kenta
true.
we kind of know is from those matches with Daniel Bryan. Well, at least U.S. fans.
And again, man, we wouldn't even be talking about Bryan were it not for Ring of Honor.
No,
I mean,
we would
it's
absolutely not. I mean, and there are a number of guys that we've talked about in this podcast that we absolutely would not be talking about if it wasn't for Ring of Honor. Joe's one of them. Punk is one of them. Um, you can make a strong case that we would not be talking about Adam Cole without Ring of Honor. Yeah, I mean
yeah,
the Undisputed Era as a whole, you wouldn't be
yeah,
able to talk about them without Ring of Honor.
right.
Roderick Strong included. Roderick was fantastic with Ring of Honor.
Yeah, I mean, again, man, 19 years. They've got the track record, knowing that either they get back to business and they recover, or all it would take is somebody like Bryan to come in to turn people's heads because it's him, but not only because it's him, not going to a startup company that's unproven and it's risky. No, no, to a company that you already kind of have some respect for because they seem to know how to do wrestling over there. And the company I've been in the past 5 years, it's all showbiz. I never get to wrestle, but they're doing wrestling over there, and that's what I love to do. I love to wrestle. So yeah, it's a great combination, man, for sure. So, um, well, that leads me to the last word. And this is great because we can actually revisit this anytime. And again, hopefully we revisit it several months from now. They've made the turn. They've got fans back live in attendance, and they're on the upward track because I want them to seize the day and make it happen. I wish somebody in that company in Sinclair would make this happen because I really want to see them prosper. So Phil, at least for now, give me your last word on Ring of Honor.
I think this may be a hot take for some people, but I absolutely believe it. Ring of Honor is easily the most influential wrestling company of the last 2 decades. Just what they brought to the wrestling industry and how much it has changed since it started. It's immeasurable. And I think they deserve a lot of credit for the boom that wrestling is having right now. Um, I just don't feel like a lot of guys would be where they are in their careers, and I don't feel like some companies would be in the position they are without them. That includes the big two. If you're calling WWE and AEW the big two.
I agree totally, and I think that they set the blueprint for how to get there, and not only how to get there, but what to do when you get there. And AEW is more Showtime than Ring of Honor is. They got a national TV deal. Both of those things help. The fact that they've got talent known around the world helps as well. They've got three things working in their favor. Just, I mean, in addition to the rich guy behind the scenes, obviously, they've got four things working in their favor that Ring of Honor does not have. However, that's not to say they can't get there. And again, what better way to celebrate 20 years of Ring of Honor next year than with Bryan as the head booker? Punk has come back for if only just to stand in the ring and shake Bryan's hand and make the crowd pop. I don't need to see him wrestle. It's fine. But just to say, hey, this company put me on the map. I owe this company something. I just wanted to say hello to the fans, and all the fans are chanting one more match, and he's just laughing at the way he laughs at you and says, "Oh, come on, we've been down this road before." I mean, just to see that, just to see guys like the Briscoes rewarded with a national platform to wrestle on because they've earned it. To see a guy like Roosh, who is a star, Roosh is a star, man, can break barriers to other audiences and bring other fans to the table, which is a great thing. I mean, there's so much positive that can happen with this company, and as we've said throughout this whole episode, we want them to succeed. I, for one, am here for it. So here's to the future and to good things, hopefully in store for this company, and that is Ring of Honor. Hey, thanks for listening to the show. Check out our social media on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at 6M Podcast. We'll see you next time.